postures we do on our mat really had little to no importance. Our practice is way bigger than that, right? We've talked about breath already. We've talked about spirit. We've talked about intimacy. Now, what is the practice of yoga? Where does it live? And nowadays, there's way too much focus on posture. Don't get me wrong. Humor me a sec. Posture is really important. Your alignment is really important. Your rotations, sequencing. Posture is really powerful. But we need to look outside of the posture. You see, our posture is not a practice. Our postures are just a capsule that holds the practice. The focus and element in practice itself is our relationship to our breath. It's our mental focus of our mind. So within that posture just holds that. But what happens when a posture is gone? Does that not remain? That intimacy, that focus of breath, that focus of mind, that relationship to mind, body, and breath, where does it go? It's still there. The posture is important, but the posture is not a practice. It's just a house for the practice, right? So next time you step to your mat and you start to move and breathe, hopefully with intimacy and a new relationship to breath, I want you to consider that going into a posture and coming out of a posture is even more important than the posture itself. Right? Off our mat in our lives, how we enter a room and how we exit a room. The energy we bring into a conversation and the energy we leave a conversation with are of equal importance. Because that conversation is just part of the practice. The posture is just part of the practice. What we aim to create through the practice of yoga is a moving meditation. So coming into a practice, coming out of a practice, just as important. Mindfulness and the intimacy of breath, just as important. Because you're coming out of a posture doesn't mean you drop your hands with no awareness. Doesn't mean you rush into upward dog or rush into downward dog with no awareness and no intimacy. The intimacy holds the practice. Your relationship to breath and our mental focus, our relationship to everything around us holds the posture. The posture does not hold the practice. And when we begin to understand that, that's when our practice begins to move more and more off our mat. Because you see, if we start to believe and allow ourselves to believe that the posture is a practice, then what happens when the posture dissolves? There's no more intimacy. There's no more mindfulness. There's no more continuous relationship to breath, body, and mind. So when we leave our mat to go into the daily world and we face all these challenges and obstacles, we're thrown out of alignment. We're not able to show up from that place of love and alignment anymore because we're not in posture. But when we realize that the practice is bigger than a posture, and we bring that into our mat, onto our mat, then we're also able to take that off of our mat. I use an analogy sometimes, right? It's a really nice one, I think at least, you may not. But our lives have become really disconnected. We live our lives in a really habitual, mechanical way, right? And what's happening in the practice of yoga is that we're bringing that onto our mat. So we're doing postures like we've done them before. Every posture is new. Every moment is new. At the Yoga Nutrasanam, yoga lives now. You've never done that posture before. Even if you put your body in that shape 100 times. So we have to bring that back onto our mat, right? We can't allow our practice to become habitual and mechanical like our daily lives. We have to now create mindful ways of living on our mat. We have to deepen our relationship in our practice, in postures and around postures, so that we can now bring that mindfulness and that depth of relationship off our mat into our lives, into our daily relationships, into our conversations, into how we show up in the world around us. So just remember, your posture is important. It's really important. But it's not your practice. Your practice is the depth of your relationships. It's where you go within a posture. It's where you go in and out of a posture. It's everything that surrounds a posture. You know, in the last video I mentioned, imagine moving at so much grace that you don't disturb the air around you. I'm not just talking about in postures. I'm talking about moving in and out of postures. From the second we step to our mat, to the second we leave our mat. Can we keep that intimacy and grace in everything we do, even if you choose to drink water, even if you choose to go to the bathroom? Can you keep that relationship and that intimacy into our practice, yeah? Our practice is way bigger than a posture. And the practice of yoga is way bigger than your mat or your cushion. So let's take our practice where it needs to be. Let's expand it to include everything. Love.